Yeah, well, the front page story, we have back to basics. So what's happening? More curriculum. We're going to be talking to Bella de Brera about that soon. But talk us through this, James.
Well, so we have seen the results from the PISA, which is one of the big international tests that have shown that since 2000, when these tests began, we're going to talk about this later with Bella de Brera, Australia's ratings have gone absolutely in the toilet, and a lot of that, people say, is due to various woke educational methods and the abandonment of phonics and the introduction of all sorts of sort of child-directed learning. And what they're saying now is Education Minister Dan Tehan says he wants to focus back to basics. Now, I say myself, well, great. But you know, guys, we've heard this before. Yes. We've heard this before, and we have had, and since 2000, the conservative governments have been in power for much longer than Labour, and they have allowed this slide to occur because they've been too weak and put generally weak people into teachers' unions at both the state and federal level, and it has caused the teachers' unions and educational fads to take over the country.
Well, Rita, it's even more structural than that. If you look in Queensland, the great new school that they built for zillions of dollars, they left something out, didn't they, Rita? What did they forget?
Well, no, they built them. They just have marked them very differently. This is the new $80 million vertical high school that Queensland's getting, and it will have all gender-neutral toilets in this $80 million development. It's been called a recipe for disaster, and this Fortitude Valley State Secondary College won't have separate boys and girls bathrooms. The only time you will see the boys or girls signs is in the change rooms where there's a couple of bathrooms, but all the rest of the bathrooms are gender neutral. So they have completely woked up in building this school. And I think you're going to see this with a lot of new school developments throughout the country. I don't think this is going to be...
I don't think the girls are going to be terribly happy with it.
No, and the parents aren't either. I was just looking at what some parents were commenting about this online. They are furious. They're furious at the idea that girls, you know, going into puberty and stuff are going to have to be in the same bathroom with boys. It's just a recipe for disaster.
And also, where are the mean girls going to get to gather round and have their gossip?
And there's cigarettes.
You remember
yeah, I know,
Mean
right?
Girls from the 80s? Well, there's a new version of Mean Girls that features Trudeau and Emmanuel Macron and Boris Johnson. This was a grab from Buckingham Palace during the week. Watch these little school kids gossiping away about Donald Trump and how mean he is or whatever. Have a listen.
We'd like it to take more than 40 minutes.
So, Rita, there was controversy whether Justin Trudeau was gossiping about Donald Trump's announcing where that Camp David would be the next meeting or whatever. But the point is, here you have at the palace, they're sitting around gossiping about Donald Trump, clearly. And yet, if you look at what they should be focusing on, Emmanuel Macron, France is burning. Boris Johnson has an election to try and win. What did you make of that?
Oh, well, I thought it was pretty stupid more than anything else. Never mind it being infantile or mean girls, whatever you want to call it. But one, we know Donald Trump doesn't take kindly to these sort of criticisms or mockery, if you want to call it. And did you notice Princess Anne was in that little group? You could have seen her bun sort of bopping along. But what was extraordinary is, like you said, these are leaders whose own issues at home are far more serious than you would think from watching that exchange. France is in all sorts of strife. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has just showed up the most extraordinary economic results. 50-year low for the unemployment rate, wages growth for the first time going in the right direction at a significant rate because there's been negligible wages growth over there. Let's have a look at the CNBC's Kramer on this jobs report.
These are, I'm not going to say it, you can't contradict that these are the best numbers of our lives.
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, we had guns and butter when we were doing these things 50 years ago, and that followed with inflation and recession. I don't see inflation. I don't see recession. 50 years ago, that number was a curse. Now it's a blessing. And you know something, Joe? It doesn't matter whether you hate them or like them. These are real numbers.
The best numbers of our lives. I mean,
that's
that's pretty
isn't it?
significant.
James.
And, well, and you know, so this is the great thing about this. Trump, his whole economics have been just gone after by all of the sort of people say, oh, you need to be more international, you need to be more globalist and all this. The Trump economic program has clearly been working, as Jim Cramer and as the numbers show. Meanwhile, let's have a look. I think we've got some footage from Paris, but
Absolutely.
Paris is burning again. Now, we've had protests, the Gilets jaunes protests for months and months, if not a year, in Paris. Now we've got more French demonstrators taking to the street. They're taking to the street because the whole EU integration thing further means that their rules don't apply anymore, so they're being forced to give up the benefits that they had as French people to become Europeans. There is a place for nationalism in economics, and Trump has found that, and he's found success with it. All of these countries around the world that are going down the road of further integration into these EU type of structures, they wind up with populaces which are absolutely furious and wind up out on the streets. And Macron is making his country ungovernable.